So, yes, Joe and I, we this year have just had our 20th wedding anniversary. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you. Hey. So, yeah, she said to put up, you've got to put up for me for about 25 minutes. She said 20 years. And that's been really lovely. Well, primarily because we got to go away for 4 nights. Yay! So, Granny and Grandpa, whoop, whoop. Joe's parents are lovely. They came for 4 nights. We had 4 nights away, which is like, oh, we've not done that since we had children. We did 2 nights away when we had our 10th wedding anniversary, which went to some lovely place in Snowdonia, and it was just lovely. No jobs, hotel, no children. Oh, I love my kids. It was wonderful. And it just provides, you get these moments, don't you, where you have opportunity to kind of reflect on life and think about the passing of life and kind of who you're becoming, what's happening with your relationship. And it's really helpful zooming out. 20 years is a long time. And for those of you who are in relationship with anyone, let alone married, you'll know that actually over time, relationship grows and changes. And so just deeply grateful, primarily to Joe, but lots of other people who've loved me through that time, and just a gratefulness to God that he's seen us through that period and helping us grow and change. It was just a real opportunity to kind of think about who are we becoming as individuals, and who we're becoming together, and really just to think, oh wow, over the next 10 or 20 years, if we march on together in love and in honesty and in vulnerability, there ought not to be, and with God's support and the support of other people, there ought to be that many things that we can't overcome. Do you know what I mean? So therefore, when Katie said, do you want to come and speak? I thought, you know what? I've been thinking about all this stuff in marriage. I thought, oh, I'd love to speak on that classic wedding passage of 1 Corinthians 13, all about love. So that is what we're doing today, okay? And I called the talk our number one goal, which is basically about growing in love. I got a bit of a football sort of thing going on, piggybacking on the football. How many people watched at least one game in the football? Half and half, okay. So I was not particularly really going for anybody. But the thing I love about sport, or when you see devoted sportsmen, is to see what can happen when the human heart and spirit is really devoted to one thing in particular, and the length to which people go and what can be achieved. And just as we kind of think about this passage about, our number one goal is the people we're becoming. It's who we are and who we're becoming, not kind of what we're producing and what we're achieving, but the formation of our hearts is our number one goal, just to think actually, oh yeah, how conscious am I of that? Because day to day, we're just usually busy and involved with what we're doing in our tasks, but how conscious are we of the people that we are becoming formed into? Is that something that that kind of process that we're conscious and engaged with? Are we reflecting? Are we stopping? Are we slowing down? Maybe are we having a bit of Sabbath and considering our week gone past and who we were and where things went well and where we were like, oh, that could have been a bit better. I could have maybe lost it with the kids a bit less there. Or I could have been more patient. And are we kind of conscious of being formed? We started doing Sabbath quite a lot in the last year, and that's been really helpful for me, because prior to that, I'm just running around like a headless chicken most of the time, trying to achieve and produce and get things done. One of my kids a couple of years ago told me that, the Mr. Men people, got Mr. Happy and Mr. Big and Mr. Small. She told me I was Mr. Rush. Now, the Mr. Rush book is actually very funny, because he's in such a rush. He gets out of bed, goes downstairs, he puts his toast on. We can't wait for the toast to be done. So he has sort of slightly warm bread, and he makes a tepid cup of tea, and he never does anything really properly. She was telling me I was Mr. Rush. So actually slowing down enough to really reflect and think about who you are and what you're doing in your life is ultimately really, really important. Sometimes we are afraid of that. We're afraid of that stopping and slowing, because actually it can expose some deep stuff. But actually the Lord wants to bring us through our stuff in relationship, whether it's in marriage or with other close friends and family or community, and he wants to do that. He wants to form us, and he's really for us. Lovely verse in Romans, you probably know, Romans 8:28, which is, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. That you have to let God use the difficult times to help form you. But the next bit says, for those God foreknew, he predestined. So God arranged ahead of time for you to be conformed to the likeness of his Son. So this is amazing that actually God's heart is for us. He is our number one supporter in actually wanting our hearts to be formed and changed and grow and become more like Jesus. Sometimes that seems like that's so far away, doesn't it? That we almost give up. But, you know, when Jesus says, come follow me, like to his would-be disciples, like in, you know, Jewish rabbinical society, that was become like me, wasn't it? It was walk in my footsteps and become like me. So that's what this is all about this morning. So I just want you to kind of really gather your courage a little bit this morning and open your heart, because actually to really kind of sometimes look at our stuff and consider where we need to grow, that takes a bit of courage and vulnerability. So that's my kind of ask of you. So without further ado, let's read the passage. So it's 1 Corinthians 13, but it starts in the last verse of 1 Corinthians 12. And it says, "And now I will show you the most excellent way. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." Just such a beautiful poetic passage. No wonder that it's been an absolute favourite in weddings through the centuries. You know, this emphasis that actually throughout our life and our relationships, that love is the most important thing. So before we jump in, just a tiny little bit of context. You're probably aware 1 Corinthians 12 through 14, Paul is talking about spiritual gifts. The Corinthian church seems to be blessed massively with a large amount of activity of the Holy Spirit, you know, people speaking in tongues, lots of prophecy, gifts of knowledge, healing, etc. But what they don't seem to be gifted in quite so much is the character and integrity piece, because you read earlier in the book of Corinthians, and actually there's sexual immorality, there's a lot of infighting, there's lawsuits between them. So Paul is trying to kind of redress the balance. It seems from reading 1 Corinthians 12, when you read that part about the body, and one part of the body saying to the other, "I don't need you," etc., that the people who are probably gifted with these Holy Spirit moments and their prophecy are delivering their words in a way that they kind of want to say, "Look at me and look at my status." They're like, "I've got this, I don't need you." That's the kind of emphasis that's coming through. So Paul is writing 1 Corinthians 13 primarily to redress the balance and say, no, look, your heart of love and your character is more important than your gifting, okay? And that through the way that you give your spiritual gift actually is more important probably than the actual gift itself. So that is the context. Now we've got 3 points we're going to pull out. I'm going to make it really simple, okay? So like that, keep it simple. Well, sometimes it says keep it simple, stupid, but it's keep it simple, Stuart. That'll do for me. But we've got 3 points, so one for each paragraph. So let's just read the first paragraph again. "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing." So my first point, which is hopefully jumping out of the text, is that love is our highest goal. And through all the things that we do, that actually the Lord is most interested in our hearts. He's most interested in our motivation for whatever we're doing. And obviously, he's writing here particularly to the Corinthians about their kind of spiritual activity, you know, and we could apply this in church and say, you know, of the things that we're doing, is our heart in the right place? That the Lord is most interested in the formation of our hearts, and he's most interested in the people that we are becoming, not what we are actually doing. So this is both really challenging and also really freeing, because we live in a culture, don't we, that values the externals. You know, so often we're being sent messages that it's about the external things. It's about, you know, how we look, or our body, or our possessions, our cars, our homes, or our achievement in work, and our position of status, and values the externals, much like the Corinthians might have been. Oh, look at me, I've got this spiritual gift. And actually, Paul is saying that the Lord values the heart. And when you live in a culture, trying to be countercultural like that is not without challenge. I know for me, it's been a real process in the last years of trying to unpick achievement from affirmation. So I grew up, I think, with probably quite a lot of privilege in my education. I went to a really good, particularly secondary school, grammar school. I had lots of opportunities in, you know, academia and music and sport. And achievement was, you know, to a large degree, rightly celebrated. But then it's quite easy to then go from that to kind of subtly going, well, achievement equals affirmation. And I think I really took that into my relationship with God, partly because I was a reasonably high achiever, and, you know, that worked well for me. And I would say it's actually really only in the last couple of years where I've had many more just midlife crisis sorts of moments, as I think is partly the journey of life. You know, your kids are getting older. It's not so much about you anymore. It's not the Stuart show. They've got 3 people, little people with their own wills and desires who are just as valuable as I am. And, you know, them growing up, and even with really normal and good kids, and without any extra additional challenge, because our life is pretty straightforward compared with some, that's a process that I've been through. And actually, so taking away the veneer of I'm going to achieve all the time has been really good, because it's like, actually, you know what, I need to let the Lord love me in my mess, or in this feeling of failure that I have in this moment. And then in that, you have to go, okay, well, I can do that, because actually what the Lord wants from me is not that I'm like achieving lots. He wants me to be formed. So let's look at the inner stuff. Let's look at the deeper stuff. So you have a message that is challenging. You know, my challenge to all of us here is to say, yeah, do you know what am I seeking? What are you seeking in your life? When you really think, what would your wife or your closest, you know, your husband or your closest friend say about your life, about what you were seeking? Would it be something to do with work, or a sport, or a leisure, or something else? And those things are not wrong, but actually our highest goal, our highest priority is the formation of our hearts. And are we conscious about that? Are we people that are thinking about the passing of life and reflecting on it? And maybe this morning the Lord wants to do something for you in that, and maybe that might be something radical, or it might be just readjusting, realigning your priorities slightly, and thinking, yeah, I want to look at some of this stuff. So that's point number 1, okay? That love is our highest goal. Let's have a look at the second paragraph. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. It's just an amazing couple of lines, that, isn't it? It's like I could just stop there, I think. It's probably like a whole sermon series, really, in that little paragraph. And what I sort of kind of love when you read it is you're like, yeah, love is amazing, isn't it? It's this beautiful, almost indescribable quality that is so much more than this sort of just nice thing. Because when I say love is your highest goal, it's easy to go, oh, do you know, I've heard that before. Or, that sounds a little bit boring. Yeah? Sounds a little bit boring as a pursuit for my life. But actually, love is not just this kind of nice and woolly feeling, and it is definitely not a doormat, you know. I like to think that love has got brains and it's got boots. It really tries to think about and really consciously grapple with and reflect on what is the right thing to do for any individual situation, for you and for the person you're with. And then it's got boots, you know, it is active, it requires effort. I'm just reading a book at the moment by, it's a sort of quite well-known book historically. It's called The Road Less Travelled by a psychiatrist called M. Scott Peck. and he's a Christian psychiatrist, and he writes that true love is always a work of effort or courage, and often both. And that's what love is, okay? Often it's pushing and pulling. Sometimes it's, yes, oh, that's hard, and it's comforting. Other times it's saying, you need to face this, and come on, you need to get moving, and come on, follow me. And other times it's, you need to lead me, and you need to step into this. But love is this amazing thing. And when we think about looking at that passage, I'm sure, like me, you've probably got things that stand out. If we could grow in these qualities, how would our lives and our relationships look different? I don't know if you've got one quality in that paragraph that you think, yeah, I'd really like to grow in that. For me, it's patience. I got stopped right at the beginning. The first 3 words, okay, got me. Love is patient. I was slightly unfortunate. I said to my sister that day, it's really annoying, isn't it, that you can only grow in patience by having your patience tested. Isn't that so inconvenient? Why can't you just download the upgrade? Any parents in the room resonate with this? Yeah? Would I have a bit more patience? Yeah? Yeah, that's just like a weekly or almost daily thing. It's very natural for your children to want your attention, and they're naturally pushing the boundaries and stuff. So you grow in patience through it being tested, and similarly, all the other stuff like the humility and the forgiveness in here, it's grown in relationship with other people, often through being tested, yeah, and sometimes often through the hard times. So point number 1 was love is our highest goal. Point number 2 is that love is formed in relationship, and therefore the question for us is, are we engaged in deep relationship where we really show who we are, and where we can be honest with one another about some of our stuff, and where we really need to grow in love? So if you're married, how's marriage going? How are some of the things that, have been issues historically and might not disappear overnight, but are you talking about them? Are you making some progress? I think love, like I say, it's got its boots and it's willing to kind of walk in the right direction. You don't get to the destination overnight. Sometimes it's years and years and years. But actually, if you're walking along the journey, then the person who's with you feels loved and supported, that at least you're trying to go there. But yeah, how's your marriage? If you're not married, what about, a partnership or a deep, close relationship? What about your nearest and dearest parents, children, siblings? Or what about your relationships here? But are you engaged in deep relationship that is helping you grow? So I'm just going to give you a moment to think about that. Okay. And this whole thing of kind of our hearts being formed in love over time and in relationship kind of fits with what I see in this paragraph as well, about like the confidence of love. So I love the fact that at the beginning and the end of that paragraph, you've got love is patience and love always perseveres. It's like it has this confidence that if you remain committed to a relationship and committed to somebody in forgiveness, and that you're willing to have the bold words and the humility, and you're willing to keep going, that actually new life will come. And there's this confidence in love that it works with time. And so you then go into verse 8, and it's like this natural love never fails. That's really encouraging and really inspiring. Lots of us have probably been in relationships or had times where we felt like love maybe has failed a little bit, or life has been harder than we've thought it would be or we wanted it to be. And yet, actually, God's heart for us is that we bring that hurt and that pain to him, and he says, well, let's start walking anew, and let's find some healing in our relationship with him, as well as obviously with other people. So we've got point 1, love is our highest goal. Point 2, love is formed in relationship. Point 3, our third paragraph, let's have a look at this. So we'll read this again. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there's knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Now, verses 8 through 10, Paul is coming back to this whole issue of spiritual gifts with the Corinthians, and he's saying to them that they are, experiencing kind of a move of the Holy Spirit, which is like a foretaste of what they'll experience in heaven. So they kind of prophesy in part, or they have words of knowledge which need, in tongues that need interpretation, but actually that one day they will see the Lord face to face. Now I see as in a mirror, then I will see face to face. And so I find verse 11 really helpful, because he says, when as a child I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. And I think there's kind of two things that Paul's saying in that. One is that there's this natural progression over time, that things change and grow, so much like at the present they see in part, and then they will see face to face. And so there's this progression that happens with time. The other thing that he's saying to them is, you need to grow up. Yeah. You need to leave your childish ways of, look at me, I've got this word of knowledge, and I've got this prophetic gift, and delivering that in a childish way that is selfish. You need to grow up and mature in love to be loving the people that are with you in your community, okay? So point number 3, which is a bit more of a point, it sounds a bit more pointed, is we all need to grow up. Yeah, and that's a little bit difficult to hear because, grow up. That could be heard in my family. And it can sound like a bit of an insult, can't it? But the truth is that we've all got stuff, haven't we? We've all got our issues. I know for me, let's have a little bit more of a share. Like I said at the beginning, as a parent, you're giving away more of yourself. And I often find myself more self-centered than I would want to be. And I often find that, I've got my agenda. And I'm hoping things are going to go, this way. And then, there are 3 other people who are like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. Don't want to do this. And and that's hard. And actually, one of my things is I can get a bit moody. I can become a bit passive aggressive. Or you're all going to know I'm a bit upset. I'm going to wear that mood around for a few hours. And it's no good, is it? It doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody. But unless I recognize that, and unless I'm willing to recognize it myself and talk about it with Joe, and we had one of these actually episodes just before we went away for our anniversary where I got quite moody and down. I was like, it's really... And then I had to we had a really deep chat, and I was like, yeah, I need to not only apologize for this, but make a decision that I don't want to do this in the future and commit to a different way, commit to not using my emotions to try and manipulate the situation, commit to walking in a better way, commit to kind of growing. But unless you're willing to have that conversation, unless you've got the kind of safety of that relationship and willing to be vulnerable, then you're not going to grow through that. And so this growth, we all need to grow up, happens in relationship, yeah? So reversing the points now happens in relationship with the knowledge actually that who we're becoming and becoming people of love is our highest goal. And that gives you the confidence to do that. And of course, ultimately, it's not just in our relationships with other people that we're doing this, but it's in our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Because you think about this passage, you think about Jesus, okay, that first paragraph. He was the one who came to earth with ultimate words of authority and knowledge. God is the source of all prophecy. Jesus is the one actually who, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, who was willing to give all he had to the poor. He was the one who actually surrendered his body not to the flames but on a cross for us. And I don't know if you've done that exercise in the second paragraph about love is patient, love is kind. You put Jesus in there. You say, Jesus is patient, Jesus is kind. He doesn't envy, he doesn't boast, he's not proud, he is not rude, he's not self-seeking, he's not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. He doesn't delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. He always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And he's the one that ultimately we can bring our stuff to, isn't he? He's the one that actually when we're afraid and we don't have the courage yet to bring it to somebody else, that we can bring it to the Lord, because he's the one that's always standing with us. And he knows us already. He's like, okay, are you ready to share this thing I know already? You're ready to bring it to me and let me love you through it. So, yeah, that's my 3 points, okay, that love is our highest goal, being formed in the people that we are. And it's exciting to see that you're looking at this formation pods thing. I no context or knowledge that that's what you've been thinking about, but love is our highest goal. So are we prioritizing that in our life through our own time and through our own pursuits and what we're pursuing, other things we need to realign in our lives? Are we in deep relationship? Do we need a shot of courage? And are there areas in our lives that we need to kind of re-engage with deep relationship? And are we owning our stuff? Could we say we're on that journey of growing up? And what would it look like if we did? You know, could we get excited about moving forward in some of the stuff and some of the areas that maybe we're a bit stuck in? And thinking about what the fruit of that would look like in our lives? And then do we just know that actually this is God's heart for us, that he wants us to be transformed into the likeness of Jesus? And if we do that over a long period, and maybe come back to this whole thing about Joe and I being married for 20 years, what would it look like if you went, okay, Lord, this is the thing I find hard, or I find these few things hard. I'm going to give you 2 decades. And I'm going to bring this before you and before other people. I'm really going to try and grow and become more of the beautiful person that you want me to be, because he wants us to nurture us, and you know, he wants our lives to overflow from who we are from within. So